I spent 24 hours in modded Stardew Valley. This was streamed live at twitch.tv/redtmxd, so go follow me if you want to. Also, I was using a bunch of different mods, but the main ones were Stardew Expanded and Ridgeside Village. Anyways, please subscribe as 10k is on the horizon and enjoy the video. I woke up on hour 1, then decided to do something incredibly unique and creative. I cleared an area and planted my parsnips. Afterwards, I spent some time exploring the new areas introduced in the Stardew Expanded mod and decided that I would take the JoJo route for this game, since the mod promised more content down that path. I then gave Morris a birthday present and planted some beans before heading down to the beach and spending some time fishing. Meanwhile, I made 2 main objectives for myself: complete the JoJo warehouse and complete the Ridgeside Village storyline. When I returned home, I explored my farm and unsuccessfully tried to glitch into the secret woods before deciding to explore west of the beach, meeting Sophia the farmer and committing home invasion. With nothing else to do, I spent the rest of the hour fishing and getting some sleep. On hour 2, I harvested my very first parsnips, sold them at Pierre's, bought some cauliflowers and planted them as a replacement. I then decided to head over to the mines with the goal of reaching level 10, which by nightfall I had achieved, collecting my well-earned boots. I headed home, went to bed, woke up, watered my plants, and did the exact same thing once again in the mines, this time grabbing a brand new weapon for me to use. The following day, I remembered I had the Ridgeside Village mod installed, so I traveled up the cable car and enjoyed the view. I got a little tour of the area from Lenny the mayor before heading upwards and meeting Geo, the very badass ninja, and also Torts the turtle. I then spotted a help wanted board, and walking up to it, I found a child asking me to deliver him an explosive device. I gladly obliged. I spent the rest of the hour exploring some more homes around the area and reading some very funny jokes. I spent all of hour 3 in the mines as I had 2 basic objectives that I wanted to achieve by the end of the hour. Reach level 40 and obtain a bomb to give to the child. I made it to level 40 easily enough with around half an hour still remaining, so I had plenty of time to either upgrade my mining skill to craft one or simply get a monster to drop a bomb for me. But before all that, I had to adopt my new cat, Nob. We love Nob. After grinding in the mines for an entire day and not leveling up or getting a drop, I decided to take a break and collect Robin's axe for her. Unfortunately, I contracted brain damage and went to Marnie's instead. Why did I come here? Thankfully, I recovered and spent some time collecting spring onions, forage, and generally exploring the area. Only when I returned home, it hit me that I hadn't got Robin's axe yet. Slightly worried about my mental capacity, I spent the rest of the day fishing on the bridge south of my farm. In the beginning of hour 4, I met Mayor Lewis, then spent the entire day down at the beach fishing for money. The next day was the egg festival, so I excitedly awoke, spent my life savings on strawberries, and talked with some villagers. Egg, what a strange thing to eat. Who is this goof? When it came time for the main event, I sweated incredibly hard, securing the first place spot and winning a straw hat. I was very proud of myself. Seeing as I was running low on funds, I spent some time fishing in both the river down south and the beach, before heading over to the mines with the goal of reaching level 60 by the end of the hour, which I managed to accomplish with only 4 minutes remaining, collecting my prize of the furry boots. I spent the rest of the hour walking home from the mines. On hour 5, I headed down to the beach where I found a huge conch, and being the charitable guy I am, I graciously gave it to a random passersby.
Grassy ass. Thank you, Dave.
I then spent some time clay farming on the beach as I wanted to buy a silo. I eventually left due to lack of energy and instead decided to head upwards and visit Ridgeside Village. There, I talked to some people.
Hello, Dave. I'm sorry, I'm busy with something.
You're not, you're a child. And read the help wanted board.
Hola, anyone need a fishing challenge? Nope.
Before losing interest and returning home. The next day, since I wanted a coop on my farm, I spent some time deforesting the area, then reading an article with my chat.
Slow man too busy road raging to realize he's driving into a tornado. There's no chance this is real.
I ordered a coop and chopped some more trees because I forgot I already had a coop, then wandered down to the beach as I still didn't have the 10 clay I needed to build a silo. Eventually, I had enough, so I returned home. I spent the remainder of the hour in the mines and complaining about a random weather mod I had installed.
No, the fog's here. No. I have no idea.
In the beginning of hour 6, I was met by a child outside my house. See, why is it okay when he does? I headed over to Robin's and finally bought my silo and spent the rest of my available funds buying chickens from Marnie. I donated some random items to Gunter and delivered a cauliflower to Jody before heading back to Ridgeside Village to find out what the child was talking about. As it turns out, Lenny wanted me to fix the minecart in town, completely free of charge. I kindly accepted as Lenny is the mayor of town, and I haven't paid tax since 1984. When I arrived back on my farm, I grabbed my chair and entered the secret woods that had been massively updated. I explored it for a while, met Old Master Cannoli, looked at the time and wandered back home. The following day, I cleared my farm for a bit, then headed up to the mines to get a bomb, but sadly returned home empty-handed. I spent the rest of the day at the flower dance, watching, of course. I am much too swag to participate. I started hour 7 by smelting up some copper and heading over to Clint's to order an upgrade for my pickaxe. I then visited JoJo where I had a look at a bunch of products for some reason before checking out a cool bridge going across the river. There was nothing on the other side, so I went over to Ridgeside village with no particular goals in mind. This did come back to bite me when I realized there was nothing to do, so I returned to my farm. I spent the rest of the hour doing a scuffed unboxing stream.
Hey, look at this.
And grinding for explosives in the mines. I started hour 8 in the mines as I still hadn't upgraded my mining skill or gotten a bomb. I was just about to descend to level 60 when a miracle happened.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
The bat dropped a bomb, meaning that I could now give it to the child, receive my payment, and see what mayhem would ensue. I grabbed my crystal dagger, then ran back home, excited for the following morning. I sprinted to the cable car the next day, located the child's coordinates, and ran straight towards him. I reset the day. I successfully gave him the bomb, then went back to Pelican Town where I got the side-eye from Pierre and purchased 65 blueberries, which I planted on my farm. The following day, I planned to get a barn, so I headed over to Robin's. So I went to the mines for the day, managing to make it all the way to level 70 by nightfall, although I was slightly disappointed the bomb I gave to the child still hadn't caused any disaster. But that night there was an explosion. The child did a good job. I then bought a barn off Robin, wooded all my blueberries, and spent the remaining hour exploring the railway area and chilling in the bathhouse. I was in Ridgeside village at the start of hour 9 when I saw a place called the Ridge Falls on my map. I really wanted to visit, so I headed upwards in its general direction, but was disappointed to find I couldn't get there. I said hello to Geo in the ninja house, then returned home, and the following day went over to the wizards as I remembered I still hadn't opened the community center yet. With that done, I traveled once again over to the ridge, still intrigued by the Ridge Falls, although this time I found a way up that was blocked by a massive log. I really wanted to get past, so I gave myself a brand new objective: obtain an iron axe. To do this, I needed 5 copper bars and 5 iron bars, as well as a bunch of money. Seeing as I already had enough iron, I spent the day grinding for copper before smelting it up and ordering the upgrade from Clint. The next day, I saw my barn was complete, so I wasted my axe money on 2 new cows. A train also came by. It dropped 8 wood. To wrap up hour 9, I went to Clint's and picked up my new copper axe, then fished for money for the remaining time. Hour 10 began on the beach doing some fishing. I kept this up for the next 15 minutes or so before selling my catch to Willy and heading home to smelt some iron. As soon as it was done, I headed right back to Clint's and upgraded my axe to the iron stage, leaving me to just wait until it was complete. During this time, I explored a bunch of Ridgeside that I hadn't seen before, wooded my blueberries, tended my animals, and attended the luau. I went there intending to put my gold star mayonnaise into the potluck, but it was unfortunately grayed out, forcing me to put in the only other thing I had on me, a potato. Oh well. But after all of my pain and suffering, I was eventually notified that my axe was ready, so I collected it excitedly, completing my objective and curious of what awaited me on the other side of that stump. I ran straight over, chopped it down, and headed upwards. I was greeted by Geo in what seemed like a forest area. He told me to collect spiritual essence in return for valuable items, then disappeared. I spent the rest of hour 10 running around this new incredible area, gathering essence and being chased by a stupid amount of monsters. On hour 11, I returned for revenge, but was interrupted by another ninja, who tasked me with finding 9 artifacts scattered all around Ridge Forest, promising me that it would be worth my time. A little intimidated by the pure magnitude of what she was asking me, I headed back into the forest and got collecting. I only managed to get 1 that day, so I harvested my blueberries back at home and returned to the forest, gathering only a few more artifacts that hour. Hour 12 begun with me tending to my neglected animals, then returning back to the Ridge Forest, determined to collect my reward. I didn't get very far and was unfortunately forced to return home thanks to this one type of enemy that gives an effect on contact with its projectile, stopping the ability for me to eat anything and lasts for an entire 2 minutes. If I get hit, I'm frustratingly forced to leave immediately. Although this did end up as a positive, as I found an upside for not being friends with Victor. He got so incredibly uncomfortable with talking to me that he just gave me a bar of gold and escaped. I delivered a melon to Demetrius and ordered an upgrade for my pickaxe, then spent the rest of the hour unmolding from my lack of competence in finding the artifacts by clearing some hardwood on my farm. I spent the first half of hour 13 grinding in the Ridge Forest before realizing that I had more than 150 spiritual essence, so I headed over to the ninja's house and made the purchase of all 3 pieces of ninja clothing that Geo had on sale. I put on the scarf and shirt and re-entered the forest with a newfound confidence. Following the instructions left on the clue book, I was laser focused on grabbing the items, all while being hounded by the members of the IRS. I wonder what they want. Every night I would rent a room in the Ridgeside lodge, then run straight back to the forest, collecting more and more artifacts every day, until eventually with 2 minutes remaining in the hour, I dropped off the final artifact into the box. The only thing I needed now was to gather mist blooms, which were flowers that only spawned in the rain. Although this was a bit frustrating, I was happy I was finally done with all of the artifacts. Hour 14 begun with me tending to my animals, then heading up to the mines in search of copper and stone, as I needed stone to upgrade my barn and I needed copper to craft cheese machines for extra profit. The following day was finally the rainy day that I'd been waiting for, so I excitedly ran back to the ridge forest and spent the day searching for mist blooms. After grinding until around 4, I grabbed the final mist bloom I needed, progressing my journal that now told me to return to the ninja house tomorrow. So I rented a room for the night and came back first thing next morning, but was met by a sign telling me to come back at night. So I wandered back home, harvested my blueberries, tended to my animals, and spent the day clearing my farm before coming back at nightfall. Nothing at all came out of it, but they did tell me to come back tomorrow. So I did exactly that, and there I was tasked with finding and donating 30 items that corresponded to the colors of a bunch of different pillars scattered around the ridge forest, for some reason. I ended at the hour by collecting the easy items and planning how I would get the harder ones. In the beginning of hour 15, I realized that the one color I was missing was purple, and the easiest item for purple at my point in the game was bug meat. So I headed to the mines with the task of finding 30 bug meat for me to donate. I managed to obtain 12 on the first night, took a break by watching the moonlight jellies, then was straight back on the grind, eventually securing enough with only 20 minutes left in the hour. I headed up to Ridgeside and over the next 2 days donated every single item I had collected. With only 30 seconds left in the hour, I donated the final items, getting some mysterious text saying to come back tomorrow. I somehow managed to escape with my life in the beginning of hour 16, deciding to reward my hard work with a night at the lodge. The next morning, I was awoken by one of the ninjas at my farmhouse, for some reason. I tended to my animals, then excitedly headed over to the ridge forest, realized it had to be 8 PM, then returned home. I spent the day chopping trees on my farm, then ran straight back over, curious to what the unsealing could possibly mean. Finally, I was allowed into the cutscene where I witnessed a portal be created, before finally completing my objective of reaching the ridge falls. I was met there by a strange woman who talked weird. I was then fed a little Stardew lore and tasked with finding 9 more artifacts, which would open the portal to the spirit realm. I had no idea what this meant, but it sounded cool, so I got straight to work. After finding some clues in a book, I spent the rest of the hour trying to solve the puzzles and even managed to find the first artifact.
Yes! I am the best. I'm flexing in real life.
I spent all of hour 17 looking for artifacts. After reading over the clues once again, I ventured into the uninhabited area of Ridgeside, where I was met by one of the ninjas. They told me to come back to the greenhouse at midnight, so after searching the entire day, I excitedly returned and headed inside. It was decorated with large rocks and foliage, and a voice was telling me to stay right where I was. So I went to sleep and somehow woke up in my farmhouse. I was a little confused. Nonetheless, I went back to Ridgeside, where I was met once again at the greenhouse and was told once again to come back at midnight. Confident something would happen this time, I grabbed some artifacts during the day and returned to the ruins, which at midnight miraculously rebuilt itself, and upon entering, I was tasked by the mysterious voice to gather a stupid amount of rare items for no apparent reason at all, so I decided it would have to wait until episode 2. In the beginning of hour 18, I headed up to Ridgeside and solved the puzzle for one last artifact, grabbed it, and headed over to the pedestals, excited for what the spirit realm would look like. Unfortunately, I had completely forgotten about one of them, so I quickly got it and placed it on the pillar. After a quick cutscene, a portal appeared in front of me, which would lead to the spirit realm. I excitedly ran in and was met by a creepy bunch of islands surrounded by lava, and was tasked with extinguishing 5 cursed flames. The area was filled with monsters, and the only way of getting around were pillars that would teleport you around. This got very confusing when I was teleported to one side of the screen instead of the middle, and thinking I had glitched the game and was running around aimlessly while a monster just sat there and killed me. I lost 2,500 gold and my dagger. This was so infuriating that I ran right back inside with my rapier drawn. A random spirit ran towards me, so I swung, somehow missed 3 shots in a row, and died again. This time losing my only other sword and 5,000 extra gold. I asked Marlon for my sword back, but decided that I was just about done with the spirit realm. In the beginning of hour 19, I had a new objective. Get absolutely stacked so I could defeat every monster in the spirit realm. To achieve this, I decided that I would obtain the space boots, 2 rings, and a galaxy sword. Space boots were relatively easy since all I needed to do was reach level 110 in the mines, and I figured I would simply buy the rings at some point. So the galaxy sword was the only real problem. The first step was getting 40,000 gold for the bus, so I started grinding both wood and stone for a coop upgrade, which would give me way more profit over time. I spent most of the later half of the hour fishing, as there wasn't much other way of getting profit over the day. After fishing for the entire day, I returned home and went to bed, excited as the following day was the Stardew Valley Fair. I got together a bunch of items from my chest with no intention of winning whatsoever, then headed into town. After acing the strength test first try, I set up my display and ended up coming second, which was a decent score, so I did what anyone else would have done and gambled every single cent. I started at hour 20 doing the slingshot game, because I wanted to have some fun. When I was done, I moved on to the fishing minigame, collecting a decent amount of star tokens. With this, I was confident in my ability to gamble until I could sell at the shop. I was severely incorrect, managing to lose absolutely everything once again. This is propaganda. I tried the fishing minigame again, lost everything again, tried it again, and finally had some good luck, managing to get enough to buy the star drop. I decided I was just about done with gambling for the rest of my life. The following morning, I headed down to Marnie's where I bought some ducks for my newly upgraded coop, then chopped a bunch of trees around the farm as I really wanted the deluxe barn. The following morning, I tended to my animals, realized my timer wasn't there, fixed it, then chopped trees on the south of my farm until I was out of energy. For the last 15 minutes of the hour, I decided my money-making ventures were working well, and so it was time to work on part 1, the space boots. So I went to the mines with the goal of reaching level 110. I managed to get from level 70 to 85 in one day, so I returned home happy with my progress. The next day was the Ridgeside Gathering, a yearly event in which lots of interesting items were sold. Interested, I headed over and ended up buying a dinosaur egg, a prismatic shard, a vampire ring, and a thorns ring, completing the hard part of getting a galaxy sword and fully completing my task of getting 2 decent rings. Hour 21 began with an awesome concert with questionable music choice. The next morning, I tended to my animals, then headed straight to the mines to get as far down as possible. I made it to level 90 soon enough, obtaining the obsidian edge, dug down to level 95, but unfortunately had to bail on level 96 or something, I can't tell. The next day I went back to the mines, but this time with the goal of collecting stone instead of getting further down, as I was incredibly close to getting the resources I needed to get my deluxe barn. When I eventually gathered enough, I walked over to Robin's and bought the barn, securing a solid source of money for the foreseeable future. The following day I descended into the caves and managed to reach level 100, giving me a star drop. I continued onwards, and on that same day with the power of luck on my side, I was able to reach level 110, securing the space boots and ticking off another of my tasks. Seeing as the only thing left to do now was get to the desert, I went over and checked Morris's prices before spending the remainder of the hour fishing on the beach and collecting animal products. In the beginning of hour 22, seeing as I only needed 1,000 more gold until I had enough for the bus, I sold some produce to Pierre, then headed straight over to JoJo Mart, where I didn't hesitate in spending 40,000 gold in one click. Now that all I had to do was wait, I decided to revisit the mines and complete the final 10 levels until it was complete. So I dug down for the entire day and claimed my skull key at just past 9 PM. That night the bus was repaired, so I excitedly ran over just in time to see Pam returning to her old job. When I arrived at the desert, I said hello to Sandy and the bouncer before heading downwards in search of the 3 pillars. Surprisingly, the Stardew Expanded mod had made the desert an actual desert, expanding it tenfold, resulting in me having to spend a decent amount of time simply looking for them. They eventually got located and I grabbed my new beautiful sword, fully completing my objective of getting stacked. So the first thing I did was obviously head into the spirit realm in search of corrupt flames to extinguish. After a bunch of teleporting around, I eventually found one, managing to put it out and escaping with my life. The following day was the final day of fall, so after chopping a bunch of grass to fill my silo, I headed up the cable car and returned to the portal. There I managed to extinguish 3 more fires, only leaving 1 until the realm was fully purified. On hour 23, I stepped outside onto the new snowy landscape. I tended to my animals, then stole a magnifying glass off some poor shadow man before heading up, taking in the view, and wandering into the portal. Upon entering and running around through a bunch of pillars, I was miraculously able to teleport onto the final fire, and after putting it out, I was met by a beautiful, purified version of the spiritual realm. I then got a cutscene which talked about some lore, and to my surprise, revealed a new secret area at the top of the mountain, which I could now access, which was very exciting. The first thing I did did was head upwards and was shocked when I realized it was a completely new farm, free for me to use at any time. And with the Ridgeside farm unlocked, one of my main 2 goals was finally achieved: complete the Ridgeside village storyline. Nearing the end of hour 23, I decided to visit the odd shop store in town and noticed that they could do work on my new farm, so I asked them about it. Unfortunately, they needed the minecart in town to be repaired, which I still hadn't done. So for the remaining hour of my challenge, I set the objective of repairing the Ridgeside minecarts to access my new farm upgrades. And it was finally hour 24. I quickly got together the materials I needed to rebuild the minecarts and dropped them off before heading back to Pelican Town. I spent the day in the mines trying to kill shadow brutes for a quest before returning back home to bed, as the next day was the day I would find out how much money I would need to complete the JoJo warehouse. I fished in the river until Morris arrived, then apprehensively opened the sheet. I needed 95,000 gold in the next 40 minutes. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but more importantly, the minecarts were done, so I headed over to Odd Jobs to see what they could do for my new farm. I think that will wait until episode 2. Back on the farm, I saw the grind ahead of me and did what I could. Every day I would tend to my animals, sell products, sleep, and repeat. I did this every single day until I somehow managed to gather the needed 95,000 gold with only 5 minutes remaining in the 24 hours. As much as I needed some overtime to actually complete all the community upgrades, I got the money before the timer ran out. To finish off the 24 hours, I decided to celebrate with all of my JoJo friends outside the newly completed warehouse, and was given a JoJo Cola machine as a souvenir to remember this great experience. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've made it this far, please do subscribe, as 10k might be possible at some point, who knows. Anyways, please follow my Twitch, like the video, lots of likes for part 2, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.